Okay, for some reason I can't get the chat room open. Okay, great. Okay. Thank you for joining us for our 5th class on Jewish philosophy on radiotorah.com. My name is Rabbi Meza, and I'll be teaching you tonight. We're still on the book, The 9 Questions People Ask About Judaism by Dennis Prager and Rabbi Joseph Tolushkin. Last week we left off on page 48. Oh, I'm sorry. Actually 47. Laws of ethics. It reads, Laws of ethics. The ultimate purpose of all Jewish laws is to produce a good people. To that end, goodness must be both defined and legislated. This Judaism has done. Hundreds of mitzvahs define standards of morality and command the Jew to put them into practice. Some of these laws of ethics, such as the last 6 of the 10 commandments, to honor one's parents, not to murder, not to commit adultery, not to steal, not to bear false witness, or not to covet, have been adopted by nearly every civilization in the world. However, most of Judaism's other mitzvahs of ethics have not been adopted. For example, it's a mitzvah, a religious duty, to give 10% of one's annual income to charity. Here is a clear example of the need to define goodness. It would not suffice for Judaism to command the Jew merely to be charitable. A specific minimum had to be set, lest we be charitable with too little. There's a mitzvah in the Talmud that prohibits a Jew from asking a storekeeper the price of an item which he knows he will not buy. That's in a Mishnah Bava Metzia 4:10. Thereby raising the hopes of the storekeeper for no reason. While the Jew is of course permitted to comparison shop, he or she is obligated to consider the feelings of the storekeeper before inquiring about prices. This particular law is not among Judaism's most important. But when one adds up hundreds of such laws requiring consideration for our fellow human beings, we begin to understand why Jews have tended to be obsessed with moral issues. Okay, we have 5 viewers. Just doing a sound check here. Okay. I'll read the last line again. This particular law is not amongst Jewish most important, but when one adds up hundreds of such laws requiring consideration for our fellow human beings, we begin to understand why Jews have tended to be obsessed with such moral issues. Individual moral training. This isn't Sunday school. It's a mission. It's too purposeful to make into a nursery rhyme. Laws, my friends. Instruction. That's why countless of eager individuals are filling the ranks of Islam or Jehovah's Witnesses or even Mormons. Why? Because people want laws. They want direction. And the only reason that the Jewish people have remained so small is basically bad PR. But we're here to fix that tonight. This is why Christians are becoming atheists and agnostics are becoming Muslim. Because those who have been given silly religion are opting out for none. And those who have been given none are becoming radicalized. Why? Because ultimately it's the blind leading the blind. That's what the text says. Goodness must be both defined and legislated. I know Christians don't like the sound of that word, legislated. They'll say, why can't we just follow a spirit? Why can't we just follow the wind? That's what ruach means in Hebrew. Wind. Spirit. My friend King Solomon said it best in Koheles. It's meaningless to chase after the wind. So whether you like it or not, we need standards. We need structures. And if you don't take God's standards, you just end up making up your own. Like Christianity has done. Right? Don't think anyone really believes that walk in faith nonsense. Right? You could dress it up like a Pharisee. You could call it unchristlike. You could call it whitewashed tombs. You could throw the baby out with the bathwater. But what you didn't know is that you were fighting against God all along. You know this. For anything to be an offshoot, it has to fight against its predecessor. Try to redefine itself, right? Like a high school kid rebelling against rules, against authority, against his father, just to end up trying to emulate him 20 years later. With a weaker, more diluted message that vaguely resembles that he broke away from. A Christian or a Muslim will tell you that the reason he doesn't steal or the reason he doesn't murder is because it's in my text right here. Tears will be coming down their eyes. You'll see sincerity. You'll see devotion. Commitment. And why aren't these people running to Judaism? Because we hid it from them. They've been able to do so much with so little. Let's give them more. In Judaism, my friends, we don't have to break away from anything because we're standing on the shoulders of giants. You ever seen a pastor grow up against a rabbi? Friends, it's us. We become our worst enemies. We have the code. We have the answers. Let's go square them away. Now, if you're a Jew, you could continue doing the same as you were doing, but from now on, you can't say you didn't know. Okay, reading on. There even exists an entire legal text dealing or detailing Judaism's laws governing permitted and non-permitted speech. Are we permitted to say anything we want, even when true, about anyone? Judaism says no. Lashon hara, speaking evil about someone behind his or her back, is a serious sin in Judaism. There are also many Jewish laws governing the treatment of animals. To cite a few examples, the Jew must feed his animals before himself. He must give his animals complete rest on Shabbos, refrain from hunting, and slaughter those animals which are permitted to be eaten only in a rigidly specific, humane manner. These are just the crust of the Jewish ethical laws. There's so many legislating business relations, treatment of the elderly, care for the weak, the ill, the poor, the mourner, and our conduct in every area of life. We are not even permitted to be joyful over the fall of our enemies. Young children at the Passover Seder are taught to emulate the adults and remove 10 drops of wine from their cups out of sympathy for the ancient Egyptians who suffered under the 10 plagues. It is as difficult to become a good person as it is to become a good artist. That is why observance of Jewish laws of ethics has not been an easy commitment, but the result is a nation preoccupied with perfecting the world. Perfecting the world. The reason that one should seek a religion, my friends, it's only to perfect the world. Apart from that, being religious means nothing. But that's no secret. I'm sure you already know that the vast majority of people who come to religion nowadays do not come for altruistic reasons. Which is fine, perhaps. Because many say one can't even begin to help others before they start or till they fix themselves, right? I've heard that from Jews many times. And I believed that for much of my religious life. But then I realized that I was wrong. Why? Because I realized that being religious means caring for others. You can't separate the two. Anything less is narcissism. And every one of the mitzvahs are not ends unto themselves, but means to a greater end. They were instituted, or they weren't instituted for them to just remain in me, but rather to travel through me. In other words, every mitzvah is either directly affecting someone else or preparing you for that. Because emotional experiences feel nice, but right in the end, they just end where they start. And that's with you. And mean nothing. Just as good intentions ultimately mean nothing. In real life, you only measure results. And just look at Jewish history. This is how God functions. Because ultimately, what's one person worth? And especially if he or she is just focusing on helping themselves. No, my friends. But if he's focusing on helping others and others helping others, that's sound theology. And anything less you could toss in the trash. Do you hear me tonight? Forget about yourself for a moment and realize what I'm telling you here. The way you fix yourself is by fixing others and no other way. And the way we Torah Jews see the face of God is only through the people we're helping. True religion is selfless. Goodness is our religion. And don't ask me why most religious Jews don't emulate this. I'm here to teach you ethical monotheism. And everything contrary to this is false. Laws of holiness. Judaism demands that Jews be holy as well as moral. It says, "You shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy." Leviticus 19:2. The purpose of the laws of holiness is to make our actions and even our time holy. The human being is created in God's image, but he is also an animal. Acting like an animal is therefore natural, while acting godlike, holy, must be cultivated. This is why there are so many mitzvahs governing those human activities that are most animal-like. Instead of denying or denigrating our animal-like activities, Judaism attempts to sanctify them through its laws of holiness. The activities we most obviously share with the animals, and which accordingly have a large number of mitzvahs, are eating and sexual relations. We can eat or engage in sexual relations just as animals do. Or we can elevate the way we engage in those activities. Even in non-religious life, we recognize both our ability to and the undesirability of acting like an animal. Thus, we say, for example, that someone eats like a pig, or compare a person who has many sexual partners to a rabbit. To elevate the act of eating, the most frequent of our animal-like activities, Judaism prescribes numerous mitzvahs, commandments. The Jew must first wash his hands ceremonially and hygienically, recite a blessing over the washing, and then recite a blessing of gratitude for the food. He or she is also instructed to speak of Torah-related matters during the meal and recite a blessing of gratitude at the conclusion of the meal. Moreover, the Jew, unlike the animal, is not permitted to eat whatever he wants. The laws of kashrus limit the Jew's diet to a very few animals. It's interesting how most people exist just like this, without even remembering what they had for breakfast this morning. How so many people can go a whole week without even sitting down for dinner with their wife and kids. How we can live without perception. That's the point that the book is bringing down. That, my friend, you may look like a human and you may walk like a human, but ultimately you're an animal. Why? Because what's a human? A human is only what he lets himself become. And if all you do is take and live life just to have a full belly, you become an animal. And that, my friends, is unfortunately the norm. To be holy is to distinguish yourself from the norm. Be holy, my friends. Because this is a fight. There's no standing still. That just means if you're standing still, you're moving backwards. You have to fight. When you wake up on the wrong side of the bed and you choose to treat others kindly, you're fighting the animal. When you're dating someone and you force yourself to keep your hands off, you're fighting the animal. When someone cuts you off in traffic and you don't bust their window with a crowbar, my friends, you're fighting the animal. Yes, my friends, you have to rise up from your carnal inclinations and strive to be holy. As Torah Jews, we thank God for the world as it is, and ask God for the world as it should be. A world where we won't have to fight anymore. The Messianic age. That's what we're working for here. That's why linear history began with Judaism. History where we're moving towards something better, a revolutionary concept. Did you know that religions of old were circulative in nature? They taught that it really doesn't matter for the world's sake how I treat you, because I'm just making my rounds, and through reincarnation, I'll get to nirvana, and then I'm set. It's ridiculous how Judaism nowadays has erroneously picked up a lot of those concepts. And that's why the Sadiq has to remind us that reincarnation is a heretical belief. No, my friends, it was the religion of Abraham, of Isaac, and of Jacob that introduced the idea of progress. The idea that we have to struggle, we have to not give in to our natures, nor should our religions give in. It gave humanity hope as a whole. It didn't play into our desires. That shows that when man creates a religion, it bows to him. But when God creates one, it demands holiness. Why? Because, for example, your pet, no matter how cute it may be, is doing the same thing that his great-great-great-grandparent did with no progress. And I know people who live the same way. But you don't have to live like that. God demonstrates his love for us by giving us the tools to overcome our natures, to improve, to progress. In that way, today, my friends, you can decide to give your children something better. To give them Judaism. Reading on. Let me try to check the chat room here. Okay. Reading on. Regarding sexual activities, Judaism likewise attempts to make holy what is naturally animal-like. The Ten Commandments outlaw adultery, even within marriage. Jewish law does not permit the Jew to engage in sexual relations anytime that he desires so. 2,000 years ago, the Talmud forbade Jewish males to have sexual intercourse with their wives unless they also wish to have relations. And both partners are obligated to abstain from sexual relations for a given period of time each month. If these conditions are met, however, Judaism does not regard the sex act as animal-like. It sees it rather as the essence of holiness. In fact, the rabbis specifically enjoined couples to make love on Shabbos. The medieval Igros HaKodesh, attributed to the great 13th century biblical scholar Nachmanides, summarized the Jewish attitude in these words: when a man is in union with his wife in a spirit of holiness or purity, the divine presence is with them. The Jewish laws of holiness not only sanctify actions, they sanctify time as well, prescribing the observance of Shabbos and the Jewish holy days and festivals. To illustrate the concept of sanctifying time and also the difference between a religious and secular lifestyle, let us compare, for example, the Jewish observance of the Jewish New Year, Rosh Hashanah, with the secular January 1st. Whereas the Jewish New Year is 2 holy days which inaugurate 10 days of ethical and spiritual soul searching leading up to Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, The purpose of the secular New Year's Eve and New Year's Day is to party and have fun. The Jewish New Year, though of course a celebration, is primarily a time for introspection. Moreover, the Jewish New Year's difference is apparent throughout the holiday. Not just when Jews are at synagogue. A significant part of this difference can be attributed to the Jewish law forbidding the handling of money on holy days. If the handling of money were forbidden on the secular New Year, people would find it impossible to celebrate. That the comparison is not between a Jewish and non-Jewish, but between religious and secular. Why? Because religious Jews why? Because Jews in Israel also, or some Jews in Israel also celebrate Rosh Hashanah in a secular manner. To secular Israelis, Rosh Hashanah is a Hebrew January 1st, a national holiday for travel, parties, and fun. Jewish law gives us the opportunity of bringing an aspect of holiness to the seemingly trivial events of our lives. Or more poetically, in the words of Abraham Heschel, it gives us the opportunity to perceive the infinite, even as we are performing the finite. Morality versus holiness. It says, one final note, it is common to confuse morality and holiness. They are not the same, however, and the confusion between them hinders the achievement of both. An act may be unholy or contrary to Jewish law, or contrary of Jewish laws of holiness, without necessarily being immoral. For instance, eating like a pig. Of course, the converse is not true. An immoral act, such as murder, is always an unholy act as well. It is therefore possible to act morally, but be holy. But it is not possible to act immorally and yet be holy. Judaism's laws of ethics must therefore be considered its most important and taught accordingly. The laws of holiness are of the utmost significance and are essential to Jewish life. But as Isaiah said, the holy God is made holy through righteousness, not holiness. Isaiah 5:16. My friends, holiness, like wisdom, can't be taught. Morality, like knowledge, can. No, friends, holiness, like wisdom, can only be anointed with and through morality. So when we try to transmit wisdom, if done properly, the recipient only receives knowledge. And if done unsuccessfully, the recipient only receives liberality. And when we try to impart holiness, if done properly, the recipient should only receive ethics. And if done unsuccessfully, the recipient only receives spirituality. So liberality and spirituality of today really stem from a fungus that grows on either wisdom or holiness that was not absorbed. Absorbed in what way? Well, in not becoming a knowledgeable, ethical person. That's how. Now, let's not get stuck on first stage thinking here. When I said liberality, I didn't mean a liberal politically. What I'm teaching here is not politically applicable in the U.S. Because even a liberal politically doesn't cement you to one party. Being liberal means perhaps interpreting in a liberal manner the norms. Whether you're a right-winger in communist China or a supposed progressive thinker in capitalist America, you're still labeled a liberal. And again, this is not an attack on either. As a matter of fact, to be a liberal in the true sense of the word is what we should all strive for when it drives us to do away with what hinders us, so that we can become conscious of new truth. Or perhaps the word I should really use is a negative form of spirituality and liberality. That's why I said the liberality of today and the spirituality of today. Spirituality without holiness and liberality without wisdom. And really, who does this affect most? Nowadays, perhaps Jews and college kids. But even if we would apply it the other way around, if we'd include the Christians, I would say that the Church of America today has acquired morality without holiness. Why? Because they lack the complete ethical basis to stand on. And note that I said the Church of America, because this huge phenomena we see of the church helping starving people of the world and is really something that came out of the American church. Because I don't have to tell you about the church's moral irrelevance in Europe. And if you say that missions that are led by non-Americans today, you can always see that they were just an offshoot of some other American mission. And the reason that the church could never truly attain holiness is because it truly has not decided what to follow and what not. And they haven't even been able to grasp the purpose of keeping laws in the first place. That's why they could be so easily dispensed, right? Because the idea that Jesus would return to take his church, whether this world is repaired or not, goes against the Jewish notion taught in Torah that God will not bail anyone out till the job is done. So historically, the church has typically ended up going off on tangents of goodness that we could all appreciate, but also tangents of immorality that we cannot. Actually, there's an asterisk here. On the bottom of the page it says, when the laws of holiness are emphasized more than the laws of ethics, we produce Jews who try to be holy before they are ethical. This is the problem of unethical, seemingly religious Jews. People trying to be holy before they're ethical. So in other words, this is just a good example of an attempt to transmit holiness to someone, and they neither grab ethics or holiness, but again, only the wind. Spirituality. Which is why when someone tells me that they're really spiritual but not religious, I really don't know anything about this person's moral compass. But actually, a statement like that has unfortunately come to denote that person as an empty and confused soul. I even wrote an article once on my blog called Spirituality, Destruction from Within. What inspired me to write that, I remember when I was living in Israel. And I used to see people pushing and cutting in line to get to the kotel, to the Western Wall, in chase of holiness. And how confused people would gravitate to places like Sfat and Meron, dressed like Hindus, wearing amulets, thinking they could attain insight through spirituality rather than morality. Foolishness, friends, because the only way to be holy is true morality, to feed the hungry, to clothe the naked, to heal the sick, all in the name of God, in the name of His true religion, Judaism. Powerful words. Be holy as I am holy. Call this to you. But the real $1 million question here is, how is God made holy? It says it right here. The holy God is made holy through righteousness, not holiness. And that's the only way we can attain it. So the next time someone tells you that a Rabbi is holy because he's descended from the Baal Shem Tov, you know better. And the next time they tell you that a born Jew is holy and you're not because your mother wasn't Jewish, you could tell them this pasuk. We are made holy through righteousness, how we behave. Nothing more. So it doesn't matter who your mother is or where you came from. It only matters where you're going. Be holy as I am holy, it says. What else could he have said? National laws. The final category of Jewish law is national. The Jewish people, like all people, has distinctive practices through which its members identify with the nation and commemorate events in its history. Among the best known of Judaism's national laws is the eating of matzah during Passover, when the Jews were liberated from slavery in Egypt. We're taught that the Jews didn't have time to bake bread and instead ate unleavened bread, matzah. 3,200 years later, we still refrain from eating bread during the holiday that commemorates the Jews' exodus from Egypt. Likewise, Jews eat bitter herbs at the Passover Seder, so as to identify with the Jews who suffered enslavement in Egypt. The Passover Seder itself is largely a national mitzvah, which helps to explain why it is the most widely observed Jewish ritual among secular Jews. Another national law legislates fasting on the 9th of Av, the national day of mourning for the destruction of the two temples, and 70 CE respectively. On a happier note are the holidays of Hanukkah and Purim, both of which celebrate victories of the Jewish nation over her oppressors. Most Jewish national holidays commemorate events of the distant past, but there are two holidays occasioned by events of this century. Yom Ha'atzmaut, occurring on the 5th of Iyar in May, which celebrates the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948, and Yom HaShoah, occurring on the 27th day of Nisan in April, which is Holocaust Remembrance Day. While most Jewish laws fit neatly into one or two of the Jewish law categories, two extremely important institutions within Judaism, Shabbos and Kashrus, contain laws that fall into all four categories. I think that I have to say a little bit here. Anyone who's seen my videos in the past know that I'm not a Zionist. And here the author is not stating whether he is or not, but he's just stating a fact. Friends, holidays like Yom Ha'atzmaut and Yom HaZikaron, these holidays are not celebrated by the vast majority of Orthodox Jews. Why do most Orthodox Jews not celebrate them? Well, to put it plainly, it's because they're not Zionist. Now, even though I'm not a Zionist, that doesn't mean that I want to see the state of Israel destroyed. However, Torah Jews see the writing on the wall. My friends, everything we've learned tonight actually negates the existence of a secular Jewish state of Israel, if you know it or not. How so? Well, before buying into an idea like Zionism, we really have to ask, what is Zionism? Not what your rabbi told you. I mean, that's just a repackaged form of Zionism created to win religious support for the secular state. I'll tell you, my friends. Zionism, the state of Israel, was founded by communist atheists, to sound redundant, whose only goal was to unite their supposed ethnicity in one land from where they could spread their destructive ideology. These people considered themselves Jews even when they didn't believe in God, which showed that what they did believe in was a superior bloodline. And where I come from, we call that racism, for lack of a better term. My friends, when religious Jews would arrive to the state fleeing persecution, they would line them up and shave their beards and their payas and tell them that there's no room for Judaism in our country. They would steal the babies of religious mothers and sell them on the black market, or raise them in socialist kibbutzim to strengthen their secular ideology. That's why all the rabbis in Europe told their students to keep away, no matter of the persecution, because it's better that they lose their lives in Europe than lose their soul in Palestine. The Torah tells us that the land would vomit us out if we didn't keep the Torah within it. So my friends, what do you think is going to happen now? When the state of Israel has twice as many abortions per capita than the U.S. and 3 times as many homosexuals per capita than the U.S. Those aren't my numbers, those are Efrat's. And those of you who call yourselves Zionists, have you ever visited the state of Israel? Do you know about the yearly government-sponsored gay parades in God's holy city, Jerusalem? Not to mention the monthly ones in Tel Aviv and Haifa. Did you know that Israeli soldiers get 2 free taxpayer-paid abortions yearly? Did you know that the precious secular state of Israel has outlawed conversions to Judaism in all of Latin America and in all of Asia and in 80% of Europe? And is even currently trying to pass a law not to allow converts to Judaism to emigrate to the state? Did you know that 99% of the world's rabbis were against founding the state of Israel prior to 1948? Or did you at least know that the majority of the residents of the state are not religious? So please, Tell me how this state could be Jewish. If that could be Jewish, how do you think that makes us look to the rest of the world? My friends, if you're not a Torah Jew, you're not a Jew. Show me one example of an atheist Jew in Torah. In reality, that's why we have Karas. And those who continue grabbing onto the state of Israel when they're not religious do so just to solidify their Jewishness. That makes them racist, for lack of a better term. Prejudiced via blood. The supposed secular Jew will tell you that the reason we need a state is to keep us safe. No, my friends. Who do you think put Jews in danger in the first place? Who, Torah Jews? It was secular Jews who forced God to make the nations of the world exterminate 1 out of every 3 Jews from existence. How? Simple. They founded communism and were responsible for killing more in the gulags than Hitler ever killed in the concentration camps. That's something you'll never hear in your history class. It's a secular Jew. And this is not just my opinion. Look it up. Many rabbis foretold this. Even the Chavetz Chaim told his students that they must fight and rise up against those secular Jews because of what they might cause. This was said before the Holocaust. My friends, any Jewish utopian movement not based on Torah will fail. Now, I'm no dummy. I mean, I could see how, for political reasons, having a democratic state in the middle of radicalized Islamic regimes could be beneficial to destabilize the trend in the region. But as a Torah religious Jew, I can't endorse my religious brothers immigrating to a country that's about to be judged by God. The Christian doesn't care. He's happy to have Israel up on a mantle like a useless, purposeless trophy. But we Torah Jews who know better don't have that luxury. And also, the world is morally deficient. What does it benefit the world to have the world's finest religious Jews running to a bubble like the state of Israel? Do you hear what I'm saying? We need you. We need you in places like America. We need you in Russia and South America, being a light into the nations, being a light that you were chosen to be. That's the purpose of a Jew. And that's why I don't support the state as long as it calls itself a Jewish one and refuses to make itself holy through righteousness. Moving on. Shabbos. The Sabbath is one of Judaism's unique contributions to civilization. Its observance is commanded in the 4th of the 10 commandments, testifying to its significance in the eyes of Judaism. The Sabbath and its many laws constitutes Judaism's attempt to create on one day each week a taste of the Messianic age. In order to understand the Sabbath, it is first necessary to acknowledge the purpose of Shabbos. The purpose is to make each seventh day holy, as it states in Exodus 20, verse 8. It is not to have us rest. If the purpose were to rest, then one who sleeps Friday night to Saturday night should be considered as observing the Sabbath. No, my friends. Rest is only a byproduct of the Sabbath. To achieve the purpose of the Sabbath, one must observe the Sabbath laws. Through the observance of Shabbos laws, the Sabbath day becomes a day of peace on earth. Peace within ourselves. One purpose of the Shabbos laws is to produce a state of inner peace by having us desist from all work not geared to making the Sabbath holy, and by having us rely on our own minds and bodies. It's no wonder why the Sabbath has always been the litmus test on whether one is living righteously or not in the Jewish world. Why does so much hang on one day? Why? Because it says that the world was created in 6 days, and on the seventh day God rested. So every seventh day we should also rest. And by doing so we become partners in creation. Our sages teach that someone who observes the Sabbath declares that God created the heavens and the earth. That's why Shabbos, the Sabbath, is the most important Jewish holiday. Not Yom Kippur, not Rosh Hashanah, not Pesach. The secular Jews have it wrong. It says, above all my Sabbaths you shall keep, in Exodus 31:13. My friends, you also, this Friday night, tomorrow, could bless the Creator by keeping the Sabbath day. And you don't even have to be Jewish to do so. Rashi even says that all believing non-Jews should keep the Sabbath, because Sabbath desecration is synonymous with idolatry. And if you never kept Shabbos before, I want you to go to the store tonight and buy 2 candles and light them tomorrow at sundown in honor of the Sabbath. That's a place to start. And on Saturday morning, why don't you try to go to your local Orthodox synagogue and congregate with other Sabbath observers and declare that God created the world. Anyways, we're going to stop right here. Please stay tuned for our next class on Kabbalah with Rabbi Joseph Kolakowski. And don't forget, we have classes Sunday morning at 8. Sunday mornings at 9 in Spanish with Rabbi Moshe Otero. He's going to be teaching the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch in Spanish. Sunday morning at 10 a.m. with Rabbi Kolakowski. He's going to be teaching To Be a Jew. And also Sunday night in Spanish, again with Rabbi Moshe Otero. He's going to be teaching To Be a Jew in Spanish. Okay, thank you, and have a good Shabbos.